All right, it's time for another Friday Reads. So, if you're new here, this is where we talk about what I've been reading this week and what I plan to read next. Sometimes I talk about what I've finished, but it is the start of a month. Like, I film these 2 days before the Friday you see them, so it's like June 2nd. I have not finished anything, but I have started all the things for the June readathon, mainly because some of the reads, and I'll talk about them as I go through them, I like to take slow through the month, which means I have to start them and not binge them out, but I do have like a book that I'm probably gonna finish the day you're seeing this video, and I have a library haul and some books I bought. So let's get into it. Let's first start with what I am reading. We'll start with the audiobook because I always forget it, and that's Lords of Chaos or Lord of Chaos. I think it's Lord of Chaos. The sixth book in Wheel of Time. So, I don't really know how to talk about the sixth book in a series. I will say that the prologue was 3 hours long. The verbosity, it's so crazy to me. I mean, it wasn't a bad prologue by any means, and I don't actually, really care, but, that's a feature-length film. That's longer than most feature-length films in a prologue. But what I will say about this book is this whole series, The Wheel of Time, is kind of classic trope of chosen one trying to stop a larger power from causing mayhem and ending the world, and it is one of those more classic tropey plots of a fantasy series. But up until this point, yes, book 6, I haven't really felt the stakes or I never felt the urgency of the situation, and we're starting to feel the urgency now, and I appreciate that. And we're currently in a perspective that doesn't bother me that much, and the audiobooks, like I talked about when I started reading, what was the last one? Can't remember what the last one was called, but book 5, I switched to audiobooks because I was physically reading the first 4, and I switched to audio to hopefully help me with any of the writing style critiques I had, which has been amazing. It's the same audio narration team that does the Stormlight Archive books and I think other Cosmere books, and they just work really well for me. I can listen to them at 2 times speed. Do I catch every name and remember who every person is? No. Do I care? No. This is a book that I'm reading purely to understand and for pleasure, and there are certain details that I don't care about, and I have grown to know that I can trust Robert Jordan to really explain something if it's important enough. And, that's just where I'm at. If I try to keep track of everything like I normally do in fantasy, I'm just gonna burn out. There are so many names, and so many people with multiple names. No, I just mostly try to keep track of which part of the world people are in, because that in itself is a little hard, because there are some places that have similar starting letters, and that can be hard to keep track of, but I'm getting better. So this is optimistically a good start. I am only, I think, 4 or 5 chapters in. Once you get past the prologue, they have more reasonably length chapters. I am over 12% of the way through the book. So that's a pretty good start, honestly, because I only get the audiobook from the library for 21 days, so I have to always be get on it, actually actively listen to audiobooks, unlike what I normally do with audiobooks, which is just go la 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 and listen to a podcast or nothing. But I do want to finish this in that time period. So that's the audiobook, and then we'll do the Kindle, because I always forget the Kindles too, and I'm reading the short story anthology New Suns. I like this one a lot, actually. This is probably, in terms of anthologies, so multiple authors, the strongest one I've read so far. I say that only being a quarter of the way through, so I've only read, I want to say 5 to 7 stories, but I've had a lot of them that are 4, 4.5, 5-star stories so far, and I wouldn't expect every story in any short story collection to be 5 stars. Even Exhalation has some stories I would say are 3.5 stars, although most of them are 4.5 or 5 star. But this has been really solid. I'm really liking a lot of the ideas that are being parsed out. I like a lot of the experimental narrative framing and formatting, which is one of my favorite things in short stories. So this has been a really great collection so far. I will probably either do a really in-depth Goodreads and Storygraph review or a video summary when I do finish it. So keep an eye out for that if you want to know which stories that I liked or didn't like. I don't really want to talk about them too much here, but they are cool. I have been really enjoying this way more than I expected, because I've read a lot of short story anthologies where I'm used to a lot of misses and hits, and so far I've had I think the worst was this was fine. I haven't had anything that's been jarring to my taste, which has been really wonderful. Now, we'll talk about this bad boy. I have finally started Memories of Ice by Steven Erikson, third book in Malazan. I have a playlist for Malazan. I will put it in the cards if you care about my other Malazan thoughts. I am only this far. See that much? I need to get a little bit further today because I do at least a chapter a day. Because if I do more than a chapter a day or force myself to do more than a chapter a day when my brain's not like on, I miss a lot of stuff. And this is one where like, unlike Wheel of Time where I'm like, I don't care. This is one where like I actually do love the puzzle of it. Like I annotate things and I think, is this person that thing that was mentioned there? I like the puzzle. I also just like interacting with the dialogue of the text. I think character interactions in different parts of the world are really well done in here for helping with the world building, which I'm not used to. That being like a world building execution technique that I latch onto. But I find a lot of the banter between side characters and main characters really awesome. There's a character party grouping that I'm excited about. Like I've done with the other Malazan books, I will do a spoiler-filled reaction vlog where I check in after each part. That's what I've did for Deadhouse Gates, and I liked that format. It worked for me. And I don't think I'm going to do a spoiler-free vlog for this, though. I'll just talk about it in my wrap-up or in like these weekly updates, because I can't imagine anyone would want to hear my spoiler-free thoughts on this book, especially since it does seem pretty tied to Gardens of the Moon so far. Because if you've read this book series, the second book is not disconnected per se, but you're with a different like set of characters in a different part of the world, and we're back on Genebacus, that continent, in this one. So I'm excited. I'm glad I'm finally picking it up, and just the prologue in this. I wonder how long was this prologue, because it was not a 3-hour long prologue. I think it was only like 17 pages. Yeah, 17 pages. But boy, that prologue. Well, talk about like the perfect like prologue for me. It was very reminiscent of me for like the first prologue in Way of Kings, where it's like, oh, we're gonna talk about something that far in the past and just like not explain it. Okay, sir. So really excited to keep going with that. And now we have like my mini book haul, but also a book I'm currently reading, and that is The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. I had this on my Kindle, got it from the library. I was really apprehensive. I think you guys probably remember from my TBR, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this, if I'm really going to connect to it. It's military fantasy, and I know it has low magic. And I knew, and I said in the TBR, if I connect to the writing and the characters, though, anything can work. I love Luca, and I love, I can't pronounce Terrain. I'm going to say Terrain. Everything feels like it's inspired by French dialect or Middle Eastern dialect, and I can kind of get behind the Middle Eastern dialect, but French words, I'm not good at French words at all. So I don't know if I'm pronouncing Terrain's name correctly. Sometimes she's called Tor. I love them both and both of their perspectives. I am loving the writing. So I went to the bookstore yesterday and I bought a copy. And it's also like one of those great like Orbit paperbacks. Like, okay. So I'm really liking it. It's reminding me a lot of books. I'm trying to think of books that are similar that I like knew instantly. I really like The Mask of Mirrors. That's one of them. City of Brass, but more like the second book, because City of Brass took a while to like win me over, but like the second book, I was just like, yes, the entire time. I mean, obviously the City of Brass comparison kind of comes from this is also a desert fantasy. It reminds me a little bit of City of Stairs by Robert Jackson Bennett, especially with some of the political theming, although I think I like the theming better in this one so far. I will reserve judgment. I really like it. Like, I really like it. And so I currently am just in the phase of I want to read this right now always and don't know how to talk about it. So hopefully by the time I finish, I'll for sure probably be doing a review for this because it's a new release this year and I love it. So that's been great. This is for Aries. I haven't talked about what any of the prompts are, but you guys have seen my TBR. If you're really curious, you can go to the TBR. But this has been amazing. I'm this far, hoping to get to like the halfway point by tonight because this is the book that makes me want to spend my free time reading. Like, you know, sometimes you read because you like know you want to finish a book and want to get to a point, but this book is like, I want to read because I want to read this book. It's making it really hard to divide my attention to things like this and the short story collections, which I'm also liking, but this is like Angela Fantasy, even though it's not as high magic as Angela Fantasy normally is, which is different. So don't have a lot of coherent thoughts, but there's a lot of enthusiasm for you guys. And I mainly ended up by my bookstore because, oh, is the cat going to join us? You gonna say hi? All right, so I mainly went to the bookstore because I needed to get to the library because my patrons voted to read The Starlight Barking for book club. This is the sequel no one knew existed for 101 Dalmatians, and I'm not talking about 102 Dalmatians. This has no relation. I'm going to link Judith's video below that basically summarizes the plot for this, but this children's book, that's about 150 pages, is what we're reading for book club this month. So if you're interested, I always have down below a link to my Patreon. It costs $5 to join the book club for a month, so if you wanted to join us, this is what we're doing. We also typically read other things, like we read Wild Seed last month, we read Phoenix Extravagant, but we're also such a fun group of people that we picked this cute one for the summer, so it's pretty great. But my library and my bookstore are like right next to each other, so I couldn't go to the library and not go to the bookstore, especially since I was kind of hoping they still had copies of this. But then what did I see on the shelf? I saw Symbiosis by Nikki Drayden. Now, if you're new here, you might not know that I bought a used copy that basically looks brand new of Escaping Exodus, the first one. So now I have both. And they're in like pristine condition. And like, these are stunning covers, like absolutely gorgeous art. I have no idea if I'm going to like it, but just on cover art alone, I am content with my purchase. So those are all the updates. You guys got a surprise cat visit today because he was being a little butt. Pets are awesome. And I think that's it for this one. What are you doing this weekend? You know, reading, watching, playing. I got to play board games last week with my friends. It was amazing. We played, I can talk about the two games we played. One called Dice Hospital. This is a really fun one where you like, basically the dice are your patients and you're trying to get them above the number 6 on the 6-sided die. And you do that with like you have different like hospital workers, essentially. It's really fun. I had a great time. And then we played another one called Altiplano, which is, I think it's in Peru. I don't know. It's a Euro game, so like what that means is it doesn't really have a lot of theme, is like kind of the jargon used in the board game world. But it's what's called a bag builder, and it's really fun. And yeah, it was just also great seeing my friends. We went to our normal board game cafe. I baked them cookies. It was great. So I'm hoping this weekend to see some other friends because they're also vaccinated. They finally have their 2 weeks like this weekend. So I'm an excited person. It's been a short work week, so that's been nice. And now once I'm done with this, I can go read The Unbroken, which I'm really excited about. So if you want to leave an emoji, leave like a desert emoji because obviously I'm obsessed with this. And like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.